Hello, friends. Have you tried what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man? C60 PurplePower. My C60 story has led me to great health mentally and physically. It's helped me personally lose weight, have more energy, and fight aging in general. You can also get C60 for your pets. Our dogs love it. They may live forever. Go check out C60 for yourself. If you use the link right in the description, you're going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. They have some incredible new products like gummies, oils, and much more. Now, enjoy this episode.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Randy Goodwin. If you haven't already, go check out my films. I've got 2 of them out there. If you have, go check them out again. Occult Louisiana is available on Tubi, Roku channel, and multiple streaming platforms. Doors of Perception is available now on Amazon Prime. Should be available very soon on the other free streamers. We are booking guests for September. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Randy Goodwin. He specializes in SRA survivors, occult deliverance, deprogramming, and trafficked survivors. Randy, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. That's very gracious of you, and I appreciate it. I'm doing pretty good, thank you. It's sunny, nice sunny day here in Portland, Oregon. So you got to enjoy it while it's here, because it only stays there a short while. It only visits.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for coming on. Looking forward to this discussion. We're going to talk about your work with satanic ritual abuse and human trafficking survivors. This is such an important but extremely suppressed topic. And if you believe what the government tells you these days, things like this apparently don't happen. So the sad truth is oftentimes very powerful people, including politicians, are involved with these crimes. It's a very wide spectrum of individuals and groups as well, from what I understand. Again, really looking forward to getting into this, but this is your first time on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and let the audience know how they can also find out more about you.
True. Well, my website is randygoodwin.org. I can be contacted there, and there's lots of information on the website. So how I got involved in this, I probably, just like everybody else, I don't have this big, huge story, but probably a normal life, blue collar worker. I worked on boilers and chillers for my career. And of course, I did some things along my lifetime that opened doors up to things happen, just like most people do. Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. Every single person does on this planet. So in doing so, sin, invites entities into our life. It just opens the door, and, we basically throw out a welcome mat. Not saying it's good. That's just the way it works. So, I went through my rebellious years, made some decisions along my adult life, and I did the same. So I got to a point in my life about 9 years ago, to be quite honest, and inviting things in. See, everybody has things in their head and their mind or their soul that you think about or you battle with. And I literally mean every human being. And if somebody says, "Oh, I don't," well, let's push you to the front of the line. Okay. So I just got to that point, and I just didn't want it anymore, to be quite honest. And so I just got on my knees and I cried out to the Lord. I go, "Father, help me get rid of this." So I got up, nothing changed, still the same. So I asked the Lord to just, connect me to the correct people that could assist. And he did. And I had about 4 sessions on myself from, a couple other people. And this was to root out this stuff that, for one, you're born with, and you open the door along the way in your life, and things get in there in. And, when you get rid of things, it feels like just like a weight has been taken off.
Now, when you say sessions, what exactly did you mean by that?
That means I would meet with an individual who would pray with me to remove entities from my life. That's exactly what I mean. Very targeted, very targeted, because everybody's individual. Everybody has, their own soup going on in their soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. And so I got rid of this stuff. And when it came out, I just felt the Holy Ghost come on me, boom, like this. Now I want you to make other people feel the way you feel right now. So it led me down this path. I just started learning day and night. And I'm into this tiny little niche. I mean, it's small, and helping SRA survivors and those in the occult get the freedom if they want. And I emphasize that because it's a choice. If you truly want to get rid of the things, you really can. Even though these people may not feel like they can, they've never felt loved, never felt accepted. They don't even know what it is. But that's just a lie, because the Lord truly does love everybody. He does.
Now, just like he said, it is a very specialized topic to be involved with.
Yes.
How did you, first of all, learn about some of these things that were happening?
I just kind of went on the internet. I went exploring, finding out. After I had sessions on myself, that just opened up a plethora amount of, wow, there's this whole spiritual world out there that's affecting everybody. And I wanted to know about it. So I just started just searching and reading articles, just everything I could to get information that would help me help others. And, with the SRA survivors, it's very small. It's a very tiny little area to stand in. And there's few people that really know how to help these individuals. And you made a statement at the beginning, about the government. And because, it definitely, it's all a part of that as well. The whole, the way they go about doing it and why they do it. And, you talk like Epstein, what's going on with that? Like everybody says now, well, the government says, who's Epstein?
Right.
What are you talking about? Who? Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's just, I always go back to this principle as far as, the power and authority in this world. Whoever has the gold, meaning the money, they make the rules.
Yeah.
They make the rules. And the enemy, the God of this world, owns the world system. the money and the power, and he's going to place up there who he wants. That's kind of it in a nutshell, how it works. I mean, that's without going into much detail, but all the powers that be are there because they have been strategically placed.
Right. Now, how did you go about offering your services? Did you have people that were seeking you out, and how did they find out about you?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is done by word of mouth. I do have a website. I've got a YouTube. And so the social media and these types of avenues and on Google searches and stuff, it will draw interested individuals in, and I will chat with them first. We're just going to have just a simple chat. Hey, my name is Randy. What's your name? Just a meet and greet. That's all. Because I really kind of want to assess them. I want to see if they're genuine. I want to see if they're just a tire kicker. Are we just we're just trying to get some information, which is fine, but I just want to make sure that we are on this strategic page of moving forward, because once I take on a client, it's for real. It's not, there's no messing around. We got to get in, we got to dig deep. And so there has to be a trust. And I really want them to trust me.
Right.
Because if that isn't established and it isn't there, then we really can't move forward. That's why I have a meet and greet. And they can ask any question they want. Absolutely.
Now, this is going to be a bit of a dark topic, and you can answer as much or as little as you'd like about these questions that I'm going to ask you. First of all,
absolutely.
Were you primarily working with people that were involved with smaller trafficking rings, or was it larger international, or maybe even a mix of everything?
It's a mix. It's a total mix. I have met with individuals on a smaller scale that they were involved in. They weren't like opened up to global exposure for their own personal life, maybe just like within their own family or community. I have ministered to individuals that were on a global scale and even an international scale. For example, I met with this one gal a few months ago. She was involved in, she was human trafficked is what she was. And it's not like this. See, here's what's interesting. We always think about trafficking. Oh, there's this agency, over in New York that, controls the world, and they reach out and grab people. No, it was her own family, to be quite honest. It was her mom and dad.
I heard that happens quite often, more often than you would think, that the family is involved with this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And what it's interesting is this particular family from this particular woman had ties to people up higher. Mm-hmm. So she had, they were, I call it the network. That's just kind of a gray term, but network, I mean, they know who to call to get connected, to make things happen. So this particular lady, the parents contacted the powers to be, and next thing you know, this lady is involved in just a community trafficking with politicians, local. And then it went to like national figures, and then the highest level of political figures that she was providing services for. And then it went, she was even taken over to England, to the monarchy.
Yeah.
With the king and the prince. Wow. and all those folks, and providing services while she's there. I use some tame words here, but I think everybody understands what I'm saying. Just I don't want to offend anybody.
No, it's all good. Like I said, just
Okay.
as much as you feel comfortable talking about, these victims were being used for a spectrum of uses. It wasn't just sex trafficking. They were being groomed. From what I understand, some of them are groomed for celebrity positions. Some of them are groomed for higher power positions or in politics. But many are just either sexually abused and trafficked, or they have the satanic ritual abuse, which we'll get to as well, which is extremely dark. And this is where a lot of people check out as well. They don't want to believe that there are very powerful people or politicians involved with satanic abuse. That's where it gets extremely dark.
Yeah. It does, and I talk to people every day. And that's all I do is talk to SRA survivors and those in the occult. I talk to people every day. And basically, if you have to go to those dark places to help the people, you really do. And it's not for everybody. It really isn't. But that's just what you have to do. And it's really interesting because you're talking about like celebrities, and we even brought up just a lower level, somebody that's maybe affected with their family or the local community.
Yeah.
So there's this huge spectrum of that these survivors are exposed to. And what I mean by survivor, Chris, is not everybody comes out on the other end unscathed. These are what are survivors. They just survived this whole lifetime. And these are the ones we get to talk to. We don't get to talk to the ones who did not survive.
Yeah.
But God's grace is huge. Huge. Yeah.
Well, let's help the audience understand what is really occurring when we're talking about satanic ritual abuse. Some of the ideologies that go into this, the reasons behind it, and I'm sure this is also a very widespread phenomena as it relates to the folks that are involved, if they are just your local level or going up to the top.
Yeah. A real common theme that a survivor will have is 100% they feel unloved. 100% they don't trust anybody. And both are rightly so, because that's just the way they have been conditioned. Then they don't know anything else. That's just facts. The way SRA survivor, I can tell you a little bit about how they are made. They're born into this family because parents did it, grandparents did it, and so on and so forth. It's a generational thing that happens. And kind of put it really quickly in a nutshell is they give the womb over to the enemy, Lucifer, before the woman's even conceived. And if you look at Exodus 34, see, everything in the Bible, they're going to just pervert and twist and do the opposite. Exodus 34 talks about, God's talking to Moses, and he's saying, the offspring of every womb is mine because I made it. I'm the owner. The womb of the woman is mine. I made it. I'm the God of this. He's talking about all the humans and all the animals. Well, the enemy wants to be that God. He wants to be the one who did that. So they give that womb over to Satan before she's even conceived. And they do this ritual. So now the enemy attaches to her womb, preparing for this egg to come into her. So it's already spiritual preparation to prepare to build a kingdom within the individual who is about to be born. So the conception will take place, and they're hoping for a chimera. So like 2 eggs will get fertilized, and then one will consume the other, and that will commensurate the first murder within the womb.
Oh.
Now, this one egg is fixing to be born, but there's multiple men who have deposited into this woman.
Wow.
I mean, it could be more than half a dozen of them, all at the same time, have deposited in there. So the DNA of all these other men is absorbed because the woman's womb and canal absorbs everything that's to put into it. It's just the way God made it. So it absorbs the DNA. And so that egg gets more than one DNA in it. So the child is born and it's got DNA of more than one father.
Wow. So you'd say primarily the large number of victims that are involved with satanic ritual abuse are born into it this way that you're describing?
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. 100%.
Mm.
Now there are cases where somebody is just born into an abusive family.
Right.
Dad is just obnoxious and he'll, belittle the child. There'll be physical abuse. There'll be drugs and alcohol within the family, but that doesn't make it an SRA family. It just makes it an abusive family. And you got to get that kid out of there.
Do you find that oftentimes family members, close friends of these victims are involved with high-level military or intelligence?
In one way or another, yes.
Right.
It's genetically connected.
So it is a bloodline thing that they're looking for.
It's a bloodline thing. And there's somebody in the bloodline that's connected. And just because we use the word military because it's this huge buzzword that's really popular, it doesn't make it any less effective in a survivor's life. It just means that's just one facet that they use. And yeah, they use it because the military has to use it. The military will create mind control slaves, and they create these people to carry out a specific task or assignment. For example, you're talking about Epstein. Well, this is a great example.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because, it wasn't Joe Blow that just went his way into that prison and took Epstein out.
Mm-hmm.
It was, he was granted access, for one, to get through all the corridors. And then when he was there, it was like that.
Yeah.
He just did what he had to do and he was done. There wasn't much struggle at all because they're highly skilled. They're very, very skilled at this. They will train this individual and there will be a visual cue and there will be an audible cue to bring this personality up to perform this task. And once the person who has programmed this individual will give that person those two cues, that personality will come up and they'll say, I'm just paraphrasing here, okay? John Doe reporting for duty. And he'll be given the assignment and he goes and does the assignment. And then he'll come back and they will bring the personality, have the personality go back.
Right.
And that's it.
I've
We're done.
discussed this a few times, the creation of altars using various torture and mind control techniques. Am I right in understanding that this could go as far as programming different demonic entities into a personality?
Well, see, that's exactly automatically what happens. See, whenever there's sin, then we open that door for demonic entities to come in, and they will purposely inject a specific entity into an individual. So this SRA survivor that that egg that was we're fixing about talking about. Now let's say it's born. Okay, so from the age of 0 to 3 years old is kind of their target age, and they will already have given over that child to the God of this world. So from 0 to 3, our brain is incapable of creating an alternate personality. As an adult, we're capable of that. And that's a God-given ability, by the way. It's not demonic. Nothing demonic about it at all, because in the 6th layer of our mind, in our no conscience part of our brain, is where our shell alters are stored. And it's there. It's a safeguard that God put in place, as an adult. Let's say John Doe sees something horrific with his eyes, just this awful scenario, maybe with a family member or something, and he just goes like that. Well, an alternate personality can step forward and absorb that trauma. Okay, and it takes proper inner healing and deliverance to, help that individual. So an SRA survivor from 0 to 3 is incapable of that. So as what happens, the left and right hemisphere will actually split spiritually, not physically. And the corpus callosum is the connective point to the left and right hemisphere. That's where the communication comes in to communicate, left and right hemisphere for for everybody. That gets interfered because that's connected to the central nervous system. And the enemy goes in there and will put like a block in there and not allow communication from those two hemispheres. And so, it's created by physical torture, mental torture, and just a lot of demeaning things that are said to this infant. This is why the person grows up and they never feel loved, because they're told the complete opposite. I know I'm talking fast here, so I'm trying. Okay. All right. So, the father will hold the child, for example, a 3-month-old, 6-month-old, and tell this child really bad, unloving things. And it causes this child just to perceive, I'm not loved. And during this torture, nobody's going to be there for me ever. Ever. And that's imprinted in the limbic system in the brain. No one's going to be there to help me. I just have to go through life all by myself. That's just the way it's imprinted as, a 6-month-old. And so all those memories at that time are stored in our intestines, because there's 4,000 neurons per square inch as an infant in the intestines. And from 3 to 5 years old, those memories are stored up in the heart. Then after 3 to 5 years old, the effulgence of the life force comes up through the spine and finishes creating the brain, which it moves forward. Now it can start sending memories up, into the hippocampus, up into the brain. So they don't just stop with one split. They want another split. So now we got 4. We got, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear. And that's a representation of the 4 corners of the earth, because the scriptures talk about the Lord putting an angel on the 4 corners of the earth, keeping everything in check. Because the God of this world can only do what he's allowed to do. Right. He's under authority. And so when we have 4, that's it's a perversion of that scripture of the 4 corners of the earth. And they won't stop there. They'll keep trying to get as many possible splits as possible. 72, 140, use your calculator. There's no limits with them. And when I talk about splits, Chris, I don't mean alternate personalities. I'm talking about real people. This is where the misconception takes place, because everybody wants to go, oh, let's chase the trauma. Let's go heal that wound, and get rid of that entity. Well, it's just what happens. You just go around the mountain, and this person never gets free. And so what all this creates in the mind or the soul of a survivor, and this happens in a cult family also, is basically it creates this web in the soul, like a spider's web. I'm using an analogy here, like a witch's web. And it's just so, intricately put, and there's just a million pieces put into it. And it's like a kaleidoscope. You slightly turn it like that, and it just changes. And the reason it changes, because we got like a million different things going on up here, right? And there's entities attached to all these parts. Right. Genesis 1:16 says God made two lights, one to rule by day and one to rule by night. This is talking about the sun and the moon. When they split the hemispheres, they give them over to the god of this world, which would be Baal and Astaroth. And one will rule by day, one will rule by night. Baal will rule by day, and that's the pyramid that goes up. Astaroth is the pyramid that goes down. But we all know what symbol that creates when you put those two together. Yeah. So it's like this rotating hemisphere that's just constantly rotating. So every slight little movement of the day and the night, it's constantly moving, and that kaleidoscope goes like this each time, and just everything just dramatically changes.
Wow. Are you familiar with the work of Jerry Marzinski? He works with schizophrenics. He works with schizophrenics mainly in a prison system. And he is of the belief that for many of these individuals suffering from this, that they're misdiagnosed, that they are indeed being afflicted by demonic entities. And I find that very interesting whenever you're talking about the splitting of the personalities, because he gets into that as well. And I do think that there are some major connections there. I'd just love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's all these entities get, invited in because, they'll do rituals and vows. Excuse me. And these entities will come in, and they do attach to all these parts. And it's not just the entities that are attached. A survivor will have worlds that are built within them.
Wow.
And these what do I mean by worlds? It's like, this is going to sound silly to most people, but it will resonate to a survivor. Let's just take a simple cartoon. Okay? Little Red Riding Hood. Simple little cartoon, right? Well, that is a world. And within this world is where the enemy installs programming. And what I mean by programming, I'm talking about actual coding, computer coding, files that are imprinted into the computer, which is, your brain is a computer. And it's imprinted in there. And I'm talking about it's strategically hidden. And there could be several of these within the individual. And within these, there could be like a whole world that's built within their soul. And it just creates this structure of demonic power and where it can stay. Because Lucifer now sits on the top of the soul. He is their light.
What you're saying is so interesting, because I've had guests on that claim to be involved with programs similar to MK Ultra, but more along the lines of false memories of being on different planets, fighting aliens, all these elaborate things, but they've also been in these abusive programs since they've been born. They're also a bloodline thing going on with them. So I'm wondering if this is also just another offshoot, this secret space program that people claim to be involved in. From what I've heard, it is exactly that. They are just being implanted with these false memories and these worlds that exist within their mind, like you're saying, and that would make a lot of sense if that is the case.
Absolutely. Yeah, if they were exposed, to, stuff like MK Ultra, and the Artichoke, and I could go on and on. There's Super Soldier, There's all kinds. It's all the same thing. The way they go about it is all the same thing. Now there's intentional and there's conditional programming. Conditional programming can be where you just see things on a repeated basis, and then over time, you just kind of believe it. Like for example, let's just go to a child at school. He sees repeated teachings on a topic or a subject, and then okay, yeah, got it, noted, boom, and it stays with that child. That information. Conditional programming is that, but intentional programming would be where the individual is actually placed and maybe a cap is put on them and pulses will go in, or there could be a light that they have to look at, and like a pulsing light, and different things going on at this time. That's intentional programming. But the two can still have the same result to some degree. Intentional programming, they're going to do it for an intentional purpose, or create a character to perform a task.
Now, based on the folks that you've worked with, is there a certain age or time period when they start to break programming or start to have memories come through?
Oh, really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. I usually talk about it, but that's a really good question. I had this young man, call him a young man because everybody's younger than me, and he was like early 20s, and he only came to me because his family was, wanting him to get cleaned out. And he was born with generational things from the government. So we're talking like 22 years old. Okay, so let's go a little older. Usually around 40 is the age when it starts to break down in the individual.
Okay.
And around, give or take, I'm not saying exactly 40 years old, boom, your birthday, everything starts happening, but 40-ish, the individual starts to break down from all the stuff, all the programming, all of the experiences and everything in their life that they have done. Their brain kind of starts to melt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they'll become aware of all this stuff, and it gets overwhelming. And I can't do this anymore. Help me. That type of a scenario. Yeah. So around that age is when it starts to, yeah.
Do you think this is still as widespread a phenomena as it was in the 80s and 90s? Do you think that they're still using some of the same modalities, as in multi-generational grooming techniques like we were talking about earlier, or has it evolved with the use of technology, social media, the access of drugs, things like that?
It's definitely has evolved with technology, but the formula is the same. It's the exact same. What I described, what happens in that individual is exactly the same. Now, a person doesn't have to go through all this physically, like I described that SRA survivor doesn't have to experience all that to be a survivor. They can actually be genetically born with all of this coding. I didn't say that. Now that statement, it's not fair to the individual, because let's say, for example, grandma or grandpa was a highly programmed individual. Okay. And now their grandson or granddaughter starts to just have these behaviors, but she wasn't intentionally gone through all these steps, but genetically she was born with it, because the scriptures say in Exodus that the sins of the fathers are passed on. And what they try to do is perpetuate this passing on. And they usually skip a generation. That's a strategic move the enemy does, just because if it's, every generation, it's very noticeable. We can skip a generation, we can maybe dance around it. Oh, maybe the person's just has psychological issues, or maybe they need some medication, or, the list goes on with that. Send them to a psychiatrist, which will give them medication. And here's an interesting, I have a personal friend whom I talk to every once in a while. He is a psychiatrist. And he said, Randy, we're not trained to do anything like you describe. Not at all. We're trained to find what's going on with this person, and then try to find a medication,
of course,
that will help them manage and or live with what they have. And he goes, this was a cool conversation. He goes, Randy, how long does it take you to find out what's going on with these people? I go, I don't know, maybe one time.
Yeah.
And then after about a few months of meeting with them weekly, they're pretty well good to go. They can function pretty well normally, not years. No, months. Just months. And he says, it takes us a few months just to find out what's going on and diagnose them with a proper medication. I'm thinking, wow. But there was others. I found that fascinating, And so their goal, the psychiatrist's goal, isn't to do something like I would do, to actually let's get rid of this stuff. So it's just right. So they can just be a normal functioning person that enjoys going to church. So Chris, the whole purpose of helping these individuals, the entire purpose, is to get them cleaned out so they can have a closer relationship with Christ. Right. That is the ultimate goal. That's the purpose. That is the reason. There's no other reason.
Would you say that most of the people you worked with are involved with the multi-generational abuse side, or have you worked with any that have been targeted individuals? Maybe they became involved later in life?
No, they're usually born.
Okay.
They've got something going on somewhere. It's not like they just wake up one day and say, hey, I think I'll be an SRA participant. Where do I sign up? No, it's not like that. It's in the line somewhere. There's either an occult affiliation of some sort in some family member, or there's masonry involvement in some family.
To what level do you think our institutions have been infiltrated by these groups, and I'm talking our education system down to the local levels. How much are these people being inserted into these lower level institutions?
Well, since Lucifer got kicked out of heaven, he became the god of this world. And being the god of this world, he controls, he controls everything. So everything, it's like this. If something is going to keep you from focusing on the true Lord God and Father, just slightly, even if it's just a belief system or it's just a theology, it doesn't matter what it is, okay? Then that is a strategic thing that the enemy has used in the government. Let's just look at the government of the United States. And no country is any different than the others. I know we like to think the United States is, on top of everything, but they're not.
It's a big club that we're not in.
Yeah. There's no question the United States is, it's up on the food chain, but the people that run our governments, they have within them a drive to execute a certain agenda and a certain way of making things into law. So the people are under that umbrella. And the entities in them are the driving force that drive them to do all that. Absolutely. And, most of the people up that high, in the government, they are individuals that are basically chosen to be in those positions from the God of this world. And, I don't pick on any one president, because any president that is president of the United States, he's there for a reason. He's there for a reason. I just don't think you can get mad at any one president. I don't like the way he does this. I don't like the way they do that. Well, we could nitpick them all, every single one of them, but every president, I did this search, they are in one way or another bloodline connected. If you go back far enough, they're, it could be this second cousin or something like that, but they are connected. And I find that really interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do, how you help people break this programming and live a normal life again. When a person would contact you, what goes on? How do you proceed?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to have a chat. And we're just going to kind of a meet and greet. We're going to talk with each other and just want to know a little bit about them. I'm going to ask them a couple questions, nothing threatening at all. I want them to feel comfortable, and I want them to trust me, and I want to trust them. It's got to be a mutual thing because, like I said, that trust has to be there before we can move on. So we're going to do that first and establish that. And then I'll say, well, if you're interested, just shoot me a note if you want to proceed. Okay, and we will. So when I meet with them, there are targeted specific prayers that are going to deconstruct all the worlds and the whole structure that's created. You just can't go in there, start screaming and yelling and say, out in the name of Jesus, and poof, everything's great and wonderful. It doesn't work that way. There's a structure, like I was talking about, that's strategically built. And you just got to pull that chain and it will come out. Now, I remember me talking about worlds and how they were built and this programming that's installed. There's also in these programs booby traps and switches that are codes that are installed in there. And if you go in there and just start screaming and yelling, you're going to set this off, and it's going to it can mentally debilitate the person, and they'll just have to be in an institution.
Wow.
Or it can set off a program where they will, like within a year or two, they just won't want to be on this earth anymore.
Which you just mentioned,
So
I've heard a few guests discuss. It's this kind of kill switch that is programmed into these victims that at a certain point they will just want to end their life, but that's part of what they were programmed to do. Is that right?
yes and no. That information is correct. It's the programs are in there, but they're only going to be set off if somebody goes in there and trips the switch.
Okay.
If someone doesn't trip the switch, no, they're just going to keep on in life. Like I said, somebody goes, and what I mean go in there, it's in our soul, it's in our mind, and all this stuff is hidden in the subconscious part of our mind. There's 7 layers to the mind, and you can't just go on the presenting conscience, like you and I are talking from right now. You have to go way back, because that's where it's hidden, and you can't trip one of those switches like you're talking about. Because if you do, the potential is not good for the individual. But the true Lord God and Father can overcome all of this. And Jesus truly does love you. He truly does. He truly does. And this can be removed. It can. There is hope. There really is hope. The programming is true, and the enemy is the one who installs it, because the door was opened. I was talking to you about the torture, the physical and the mental torture, and the father does this to the child. Well, the father has the spiritual authority over that child. So he's already opening the door to that child. And that allows the enemy to come in and install this in the individual's soul.
From everything that we know about our ruling class and our government and justice system, it doesn't seem like this is going to be a problem that can ever be solved by quote-unquote authorities.
Yeah.
Do you think it is something that eventually we can, as a collective, come to battle against and get rid of?
You're going to battle the enemy until you leave your body. We are in the scriptures, it tells us we have to fight the good fight of faith and put on the full armor of God. And this should be done on a daily basis, because the technology and the strategy of the God of this world, he evolves with time and technology. Like I said, an individual could be born with this. And now, since they're born with this, they can come into your mind at night when you're in a dream and install other programs.
You said people can be born with that. To me, that seems like a blatant infringement on free will.
It is. The reason it is because sin has happened. And when sin has happened, the God of this world has the right to pass on the sins of our fathers onto the generations, unless unless someone breaks this and stops it. In the book of Exodus talks about how the sins of our fathers are passed on to the third and fourth generations. Well, they perpetuate this passing on. So it could, go on for thousands of years. Thousands of years. I'd like to share a story about an individual. Okay. Now, this individual came to me, I think he's like 42. And his father was a famous preacher. And if I named his names, you'd probably recognize him, on TV and all. Well, he came to me, and the son wasn't famous, but he said, "Yeah, I found you, Randy." So we chatted, and then we started to have sessions. And he just had a job, most of his adult life, just 8 to 5 job. But he kept having these dreams. He kept having these visions. He kept having all this stuff that was just going on in his head. Well, come to find out, he had stuff that went all the way back to the Tower of Babel.
Wow.
In his bloodline. So at the Tower of Babel, the original families that were involved with that, they gave their entire bloodline over for all time and eternity. So anybody that can be traced back there, the bloodline, automatically gets born with a Nephilim. So this individual had pyramids and structures going back to the Pharaoh.
Interesting.
So, and this was a lot of talking about the themes, the worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to remove all that, and he's doing really good now.
We got a few minutes left. Maybe we could get some final thoughts. Anything important that we have not covered that you'd like to let the audience know about before we close out?
So basically, I'd like everybody to know, like I said before, there is hope. You are truly loved. I know some of this stuff just sounds like, if you haven't been involved, you haven't been exposed, it sounds like, you're way out there in left field. Okay, I understand. But if you have been involved, I know this stuff, everything I've said makes sense to you. And those are the people that this should be targeted for. You are loved. You are cherished. There is hope, even though you've been told the complete opposite. And I understand that because that's the way you have been imprinted. And that's what I just like to leave with everybody, is that right there, that there is hope. All this stuff is real. It does happen, but the true Lord God and Father can remove it all.
Right on. Well, Randy, if people would like to get in touch with you and possibly utilize some of your service, what is the best way that they can do so?
Just look on my website, randygoodwin.org, and you can send me a note, and we can go from there.
Excellent.
And I got a bunch of YouTube videos that you can look at and learn from as well.
I'll have the links in the description as well as with your website.
Yeah.
And Randy, thank you so much again. Definitely love to do this again in the future. There's much more we can discuss. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.
Thank you, Chris.
The nature of this experience seems to always be just beyond the reach of our science, technology, and consciousness collective.
There's layers upon layers upon layers.
It does add such an element of mystery to this place.
Why are we here?
We're getting closer to the truth now.
There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities.
I'm focused on the non-human intelligence contact phenomenon in dreams. Dreams involve interactions with real entities.
People are waking up paralyzed. They're sensing or seeing something very evil in the room.
I have experienced sleep paralysis.
shadow people start to appear.
I was taken from my earliest memories by non-human alien entities. More and more people are wanting to talk about these things.
A ufologist would say, well, that's obviously an extraterrestrial. And a paranormal researcher would say, well, that's a ghost. Well, what if it's all of those things and none of those things? The entities, the intelligence that was just beyond our understanding.
There seems to be something a little extra that can take forms of anything.
I can't believe what I've seen, but it continues on a daily basis. We're definitely not alone. UFOs, UAPs, portals opening up.
I live with all this supernatural stuff. You kind of grow up with that around here. You see a lot of strange things. I don't like to talk about skinwalkers too much.
I had an experience with a skinwalker entity.
People, they would say they would transform into bears, into wolves. There's these bad things that occur. Ghosts, UFOs, and all types of things coming from somewhere.
Our beliefs, our emotions, and our fears all seem to heavily influence the nature of these experiences.
There is so much more that we just don't have time for in this busy, loud, noisy life that we lead.
All of this is planned. Everything is synchronicity.
There's so much more out there. We really are picking up such a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The world is an amazing place.
It feels like we're gods in training.